Noon to you all. This is From A to B, presented to you by Awesemo.com. I'm Andrew. That is Ben. Thank you for listening. If you are listening, if you could give us a like on YouTube, or if you're watching now, that would really go a long way towards making us look good. Which we always need to look better, right, Ben?
It's true. Happy Monday. We're gonna do some Showdown. We're gonna talk some Showdown first. We're also gonna recap what happened yesterday. I'd like to recap college football. That was a lot more fun for me, but that's not as fun, and people want to talk NFL. There was
some golf stuff we'll get into too, but
yeah, it was quite a week. Another wild one. The NFL is, not that it's not ever entertaining, but it just seems like madness. There are just teams all over the map in terms of records.
Yeah, and just when you think that that it's going to be one of those weeks that's not insanely high scoring, happened again. All that late, the second round of games was wacky. I did not expect those to be as impactful as they were. But let's talk first about last night's showdown. Really fun game between the Pats and Chiefs. So I think we'll lead off with showdown talk. We'll talk a little bit about last night. Then we'll talk about what we're looking for this evening when we, again, have more showdown to get into. And then we'll get into week in review, talk about some of the lineups, some of the decisions we made, and move it from there, all right?
Yeah, and you've got questions on showdown, drop it in the chat. We see some people. What's going on? Glad to have you here. But yeah, last night's showdown was, what a game. That was a wild one.
Yeah, dude, it was like, really fun to watch. It's really fun to watch.
It was madness. And we were talking a little before the show, and you said it, and you were right. Like 43-40 with just points left all over the field. Like it could have been north of 100 total easily.
The Pats really were live to score 60 points last night. They probably should have. Fortunately for the boss man, they didn't.
Yeah,
he took down the showdown with both kickers in an 83-point game where both kickers get it done. That's a wild outcome.
Yeah, and that's we've talked, and we're going to talk about this slate too. It's showdown. Optimal is one thing, but also unique is another, and we see crazy things. Last night, it was two kickers and two running backs, which they don't really complement each other in any way, especially running backs that are they're dependent on finding the end zone, which kills a kicker's value.
Right.
That's kind of what you see. I certainly, 83 points, that makes it even less likely, but that's the name of the game. And, building creative within a chance, you can be unique, and boom, you hit lightning in a bottle and you have a huge score.
Right. And Alex is, he plays a lot of lineups, and it's not like that, I think, was a core strategy. It's, sometimes you hit a note, and that's awesome. You got to take some wacky stances. But to reiterate what you were saying, in general, I think it's just worth kind of bringing home. RB1, especially ones that don't catch passes, and kickers of their same team are generally going to have a pretty poor correlation to one another, because the sort of ground and pound running backs, like, Sony Michel is definitely that. Kareem Hunt will occasionally catch some balls, and he caught a few last night, including that mega dom.
Yeah.
But the running backs are going to get their touchdowns are very, very important for them, and for kickers, they need offenses that are moving along quite well and then stall out for them to hit a lot of value, and that's what happened last night. It was also rare too. I in general have not really played a lot of kickers on the showdown slates, because usually their upside is 11, 12, 13 points. They both scored, I don't know, it was like 17 and 22 or something last night. But I think a big reason why that was able to work last night too was that none of the super cheapies did anything. That's pretty rare. Usually you get some kind of, whether it's the Traquan Smith or whoever, there is a
Aldrick Robinsons of the world.
Right. There's a $200 to $2,000 player somewhere that's going to score a ton of points and troll you. And that's where I was going after last night. I had a fair amount I played a lot of Chris Hogan and a lot of Chris Conley, who I think got hurt.
He took a shot. I saw And you're right. Obviously, in an 83-point game, you would think that somebody, a lesser known guy caught a deep one. And when that happens, it's really hard for a kicker to surpass it.
Right.
Didn't happen last night. It's Showdown, and that's the kind of stuff where we're gonna see. We get another one tonight. That is the cool thing about Showdown. There's a lot of them. It doesn't, you have a couple a week at least, and new slate, completely new landscape.
And an 83-point game, generally, if teams score that many points, they're scoring touchdowns, right? It's really hard to rack up 40-something points with 4 or 5 field goals, but that's just how good the offenses were at moving the ball last night. Like, neither team could stop them, could stop the other one. I was pretty into Sony Michel. I had a feeling, I was pretty confident thinking that the Chiefs were not going to be able to stop the Patriots from running the ball. Patriots do have a pretty good run-blocking offensive line. They're big guys, and the Chiefs are not only a pretty small front seven, but also they were down some people. They're down several safeties at this point, and then Justin Houston wasn't playing either. Yeah. So seemed like that was good. But any takeaways from the game for you? Are we taking victory laps on Pat Mahomes?
No, I will say this, and again, I was super impressed with him just to battle back. Those are the type of games that I envisioned from him. I know I've been saying this all year, where he could have thrown a couple more. And he also made some ridiculously good throws. It was a full Monty of that. It happened really fast. Like, even for me, I played some primetime, had a nice little team going, and then it was just like, oh, okay, wait, Tyreek Hill caught that touchdown that wasn't intended for him, and then the mega dong touchdown. Those explosive teams, they can get crazy fast. The Patriots are really good. They've got a lot of weapons now. I didn't take away much, to be honest. I thought the Patriots would win the game. I was more surprised that the Chiefs honestly battled back once they got out. I thought it might just be a lost game for them, but more power to them.
Especially when they're kicking field goals down like a bunch of scores. That was weird.
It seemed inevitable, but then, I mean, they have obviously some real explosive players all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, it's really hard to beat them like that. I was a little bit surprised that I guess I wasn't surprised, but the Patriots did the exact same game plan they did last year in week 1 against them to very similar results. Obviously, the Pats got blown out in that game, but they did the same thing where they really sold out to kill Kelsey, and then Hunt and Hill had some big plays around them, which is sort of exactly what happened last year. It's kind of funny that that happened again, but they were chipping, like they had defensive linemen like going out of their way to hit Kelsey before he got his release, all over the place, and just beating on him. So that left some room for Hunt and Hill. Again, also Hunt and Hill are better types to beat the Patriots just because they're super, super fast. And the Pats secondary is fast, but the front seven is crazy slow. But they actually have one of the faster secondaries in the league. We saw McCourty actually, he got beat badly and shouldn't have done that in the first place, but he almost chased down Kareem Hunt from behind. Hard to do that when you're 5 yards off the guy, though.
Yeah, I mean, it was the kind of game I think both teams, just to wrap it up, and I could say they're not going to be scoring 83 points total tonight, but I'd say both teams probably came away thinking they left a lot out there in a bad way. Chiefs easily could have won the game if they didn't start so slow, and the Patriots easily could have won in kind of dominating fashion, whether they clean some stuff up or just finish those drives. Probably going to see, it'll be interesting to see. I know this is a long term, and who knows if it ever happens, if the Chiefs can get them in Arrowhead in the playoffs. That's going to be important. I think that would make a huge difference.
Well, I think that ship kind of sailed last night too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They're still up one game, but they're going to have to, it's going to be tough. I mean,
lost the tiebreaker, the Pats.
Yeah, I would say the Patriots are certainly favorite to hunt.
Don't forget what division the Patriots play in either.
Don't sleep on my Jets. Anyway, we got
I think they're asleep, buddy.
Yeah, I know. Hey, they're battling, but as good as those teams look last night, this is first of all, it's not great teams. They are so injured though. We're gonna break this down, but my God, there's half the team is hurt on both sides. I really don't even know how much clarification we're gonna have leading up to game time.
Yes, it's a bummer of a game because usually Monday night is they try to be good. The problem with Monday night games are you can't flex them. So like San Francisco was supposed to play a ton of primetime games this year because they were an exciting team in theory, right? Kyle Shanahan, Jimmy Garoppolo was the best quarterback in the league last year, right? But so like a lot of their Sunday night games, you can, those will get flexed out and they'll move those into the afternoon, but you can't do that with Monday. So
that's why the
trash games on Mondays are stuck there.
Yeah, that's why the Chiefs play every Sunday night forever. Like they just keep flexing them.
Yep, because they're super fun to watch.
Yeah, it's good for me. I don't have to deal with Mahomes on the main slate. So yeah, I mean, I'll just go through real quick. Obviously we got Packers Niners tonight. Total, I saw chat talking about this already, but total's around 47 in terms of the over-under. Pack laying about 10. So if you go from a team total standpoint, Packers about 28, Niners about 17.5-ish. It's hard to envision the Niners winning the game. I get it. It's just going to be a matter of injuries at this point, though, for Showdown specific. If you're looking at the lobby on DraftKings, the question marks, the red Qs are all over the slate. It's not good.
No, it's not. Like, who's even playing wide receiver for either of them at this point?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, you've got – so I'll just rattle through them. Breida is questionable, even though I did see I think he's trending towards playing. Garcon is questionable. Trent Taylor is doubtful. And then on the other side, we got Allison and Cobb still banged up. No clue what their status is. I haven't seen anything just yet. So it's going to bring in a lot of names, and I think this is going to be an interesting showdown. I would venture to say this is one where you could have a bunch of people in terms of ownership taking a zero if they kind of reach for, one of these receivers that may not see many snaps because we don't know exactly what Cobb or Allison are going to give you. Yes.
I think that's the real sick part of this is like we don't really know who's in, who's out. Neither team, like Rodgers is clearly hurt. This also strikes me as one of those Rodgers games where he's just potentially so efficient that he doesn't really get it done. I don't think it's going to take a ton for Green Bay to handle San Francisco. The Green Bay defenses look pretty good. Like they're rushing the passer okay. Like their linebackers are bad. Clay Matthews is a dust, but the defensive line has been pretty solid. And then some of those young cornerbacks are really, really doing it. Kevin King was always my favorite of them, but Jair Alexander and Josh Jackson are really, really playing quite well. So, and then Beathard is just, he's not that bad of a quarterback, right, but he doesn't have a ton of weapons. And
yeah, he battles. From a fantasy perspective, he's actually decently useful in a vacuum. He's not like, I don't want to bash on my main man Josh Allen, but he doesn't put up many of those where it's just like, oh my God, this guy's got 37 yards. He throws, he's throwing picks, he's taking sacks, there's fumbles, but he still racks up some. We've seen in the 2 games this year. It's not like it was bad. It's just he's outmatched. His weapons are, somewhat limited. We'll talk about some guys. I saw chat talking a little about, Kendrick Bourne being in play, and guys like that are in play tonight. It's tough to imagine them being able to hang around, especially if Green Bay gets going offensively.
Yeah, I do think this has potential to be one of those scripts where Green Bay kind of crushes them, and you can sort of run with like an Aaron Jones Packers defense and Beathard with some weapons, and then you can afford to spend up for like Devontae Adams or something like that, who I think is in a pretty good spot. Richard Sherman is like, his numbers look good, but I guess he's not. I've heard some reports that his play has been a little bit underwhelming and he's gotten bailed out by a few drops. But, it's nice to see him still out there. It's cool that guy can still play. But I think Adams probably has a bit of an advantage there, especially without San Francisco having much pass rush. So you're not going to be able to get a whole ton of pressure. Rodgers should have tons of time. He's also, I think the big thing for him this year, why he's been sort of back to his old efficient ways. Remember, before he got hurt last year, he was really getting thrown around a lot. Mm-hmm. It was because Bulaga and Bakhtiari, who are 2 of the better tackles in the league, really good pass blocking tackles were either not playing or hurt most of last year. So
yeah, and he always, I mean, obviously, like a lot of people, I'm a huge Rodgers fan. He does tend to really hold on to the ball. Like service, he throws guys open like that. Does open himself up to taking some fumbles, taking some hits. It's going to be, and I know this is it's something we deal with on the main slate. It's certainly magnified tonight. If you think that the Packers get out, if you think that, I say they, Rodgers is efficient, what do you do with the three-headed, I don't want to say it's a monster, it's a three-headed something in the backfield. I think that I feel like most people think that Aaron Jones is the best of them, but the workloads, they're game script dependent, and it's really tricky to distinguish.
Yeah, I don't have a great feel on that. I mean, I'm more of a Ty Montgomery fan generally because I like the pass catching, but I don't think you're playing one of them with the idea. I mean, I don't think you're playing Green Bay running backs thinking that it's going to be a shootout.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
No, I get that. It's just, it seems, I know this is you would think one of them would have a pretty nice game. And we did just have friend of the show, Chad Moore, in chat just said, and again, we'll always have to confirm, but Allison and Cobb expected to possibly miss tonight. That would be that would open it up. If those two miss, I mean, we're gonna have the MVS, Equinemius St. Brown, and the gang certainly launched into conversation tonight.
Yeah, I think MVS is a fine play anyway. I have some of him in the main slate, but do we have that for sure that Cobb and
it just says, I'm just reading chat. It says likely to be inactive per Schefter.
Okay.
So that would be
good find.
Yeah, great find. Appreciate that. That's going to open it up. And again, this is where you alluded early in the show about last night. You're saying it was really weird. None of the lower owned value hit tonight. It looks littered with people down there. It would be hard to imagine somebody cheap not going. There are so many options in that, sub, 4K range. You got kickers. Ty Montgomery, St. Brown is down there. That's not that many. I guess it's not as many as I thought, but still, there's some options where it's going to probably be pretty feasible to jam Rodgers Adams and work down.
Yeah, I think that's true. And Peter brings up a good point. This was kind of my argument is like the Packers, if they get a big lead, he guarantees Jones is going to get a ton of carries. I don't like to trade in guarantees, but I like Jones in that situation too. That's where I'm most likely to get after them is like Jones captain, run it back with Beathard and some receiving options, hope that they just plow him and Beathard has to throw for 375 with a bunch of picks.
Yeah. No, I get that. It's just, we've seen the risk there. I was really into that with the, when they played the Lions and boom, they fell behind, never materialized. Now this is a different situation. They're at home. They're playing a wounded animal team. Yeah, Aaron Jones should benefit from that. It's going to be interesting. And this is also one, and I haven't built yet, of course. It will be interesting to see if it's so soft that you can jam the expensive guys in captains. And that could be an alert to maybe leaving, not that you can't leave salary on the table at all times, but you could really rotate your lineups in terms of captaincy and leave a boatload on the table.
Yep. And we talk about this often, but Showdown specifically, anything's on the table. It's fine to leave a bunch of money out there because it's more important to try and be as unique as possible as it is to be optimal in something like this where there's less options. That said, tonight there are more options. It's going to be kind of fun. I think it's a cool night to do some MME and just try to take there's a bunch of cheap wide receivers, take some stabs on some different guys. I wouldn't be playing 60% of any of these dudes, but make a bunch of teams and put a bunch of them in 20 because I think a lot of them will be single digits.
Yeah, I think you're going to be able to get some interesting spots. Again, the news is going to develop and that will lead some concentrated ownership. But But, Jimmy Graham's another guy. Obvious. I've been playing him on the main slate like there's no tomorrow. He owes me many touchdowns, and we know that he's somewhat touchdown dependent, but he's got that red zone targets upside for sure. That could be certainly a play.
My big argument for Graham, and I was with you, I played a ton of him on the main slate the last few weeks too. Mine was more thinking that with Rodgers banged up the way he is, that he wouldn't be holding the ball for as long because he's not able to move around, and he'd have to get it out quicker. And that means sort of those, 10-yard up the seam plays to Jimmy Graham a lot. That hasn't really been the case, but I do still think that's possible. Rodgers supposedly had a setback last week, so he's back to a bigger brace again. I don't know what that really means.
Yeah,
but
they said he tweaked it. And obviously they were playing catch up last week. Graham had a lot of targets. It just wasn't the most efficient game from them. We'll see if they could really, really make some connections. I definitely have a good amount of interest there. It's just going to be I'm more confused on the Niners side, to be honest. Kittle, of course, he stands out. Him and Beathard, they both went to Iowa together. They certainly have some type of connection. It's just what in the receiving core. Goodwin, of course, but there's got to be something else. Is it that Bourne guy? Is there other people? I'm not really sure how to attack the Niners. That's going to be where I really dig in. It's tricky.
With you there. The Vikings are really well set up to cover Jimmy Graham as well with Harrison Smith, but Jaquiski Tartt, he's back, right? I believe he is. San Francisco's safety, who is pretty solid at that kind of coverage. So worth noting. But I do think, I don't know, I do like some Graham. I just think it's Jimmy Graham, and he is a high variance guy. The 2 touchdown game is coming. It might be with 50 yards, but
yeah, no, I mean, of course, there's on the other side of the game though. Do you have a feel for the Niners side? I mean, obviously Beathard, Kittle, the main dudes. I feel like that's the side that may get, especially with Green Bay's guys, say Cobb and Allison sit. The Green Bay receivers, I feel like will get talked up. MVS is somewhat of a name now. Equanimeous St. Brown. Do you think we can look on the other side who it's not exactly like their receiving core is healthy?
No, it's certainly not. I will take a few stabs on Goodwin just because he doesn't need much, right? He's so fast. He's just like one of those big play guys. Beathard, I don't think, is like Mr. Gunslinger, so it's certainly not as fun as Pat Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, but Goodwin is almost that fast. That said, he's been banged up, so maybe he's not that fast right now. A hamstring injury can certainly make it difficult to run. I like Garcon, though. Just kind of have always kind of been a fan of his. So I'm leaning there over Goodwin, but
yeah, I'm assuming. I think Garcon will play. We'll have to confirm it for sure.
Last I heard, he was leaning towards playing.
Yeah, I mean, but there's guys all the way up and down. I know in chat someone just mentioned this name, and I mean this is but like Victor Bolden Jr., burner, who he came back, saw a handful of targets last week. Like these are the type of guys in the game last night. We saw A, there weren't a lot of them to choose from, and B, none of them materialized. Like a couple weeks ago, you talked about this. Traquan Smith, even Maurice Harris, there were lesser known super cheapies that got there, and that changes the whole complexity of the slate.
Absolutely, it did.
So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. This is a weird, not that they're not all strange, but man, this is going to be, even just thinking how people choose to attack this. There's so many guys with so many unknowns in the middle.
Yeah. I just talked about at the beginning of the slate how I don't generally play kickers in these things. I'm way more likely to do it tonight than I was last night.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't really, for me with the kickers, they clearly get a boost in a game that you don't think is A, going to be efficient, and B, going to be a super shootout. Like if teams are stalling, that is the recipe for kickers. If there's not that many points scored, that's the recipe for kickers. It's just hard for kickers to get there in a game, despite what we saw last night. when there's that many touchdowns because they're not going to be one of the highest 6 scoring. And a lot of times that's what you need on the showdown. It's just points.
Yep. Bounce back game for Mason Crosby.
I mean, I wonder, obviously not super pertinent, but like, he's a pro and they like him in that locker room. He's got to know though, like if he misses early tonight, this could be it. I mean, he can't have another real bad one. God, that's got to be some pressure.
Yeah, that's tough. And yeah, we did talk about that last week. I do think he is one of the guys that
he has a longer leash. Yeah.
Yeah. He's been there a long time.
And he's made some big kicks.
Yeah.
But man, that was in the dome. Like if it was in Green Bay, it would still be egregious, but at least you could say it's, maybe it's cold and it's outdoors, but God, that was pretty bad.
Just a tough day. I do like Breida. I think he will probably play, and he's a nice one to play with Beathard. He has a bit of that Chris Thompson-y kind of role where it's a lot of screens. Explosive guy, could break one. So, and like I was saying before, Goodwin is a little bit of a tougher sell with someone like Beathard because he doesn't really spend a lot of time looking downfield. So,
I'm a Breida fan. And again, everyone, you got to stay on top of the news. If you're in our Slack, go in there. We'll all be in there. We'll be talking. People will keep you updated. If he's on some type of snap count, if he's going to give it a go and he's limited, I might probably say, 40, it's showdown. It's not like there's sneaky plays. I'll fade the 30, 40% that are going to go to him and build elsewhere and just kind of make like he's not a factor and roll the dice there. But if we get word he's good to go, I have interest there too. I think he does gel well in this slate and with Beathard.
Yes.
Yeah, man. It's I don't know. It's like I said, strange combinations could be tonight. And I don't want to overdo this, but I would venture to say we will see a disproportionate amount of double kicker tonight because it won last night. And it is what it is. I have more interest in the kickers tonight, but you can't base anything off. Showdown to showdown is not a correlated thing at all, obviously.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, that's a good point. Do you think people will be looking? I guess there's other people that are going to say, hey, because there's other shows out there that people are going to be watching about it. And I'm sure people will say that it was double kickers that won last night. I think it's less, I am more into a kicker tonight than I normally would be, just because I think this game is going to be a more kicker friendly environment. But there's so many cheap skill position players. And if one of them breaks a decent dong, like that's likely going to beat a kicker almost every time.
Oh yeah. No, a lot of stuff. And we talk about this all the time. It's a balance. A lot of stuff is reactionary in DFS. And there's a lot of people that wake up, go to the top of the showdown slate, and they say, oh, double kicker. Like, I got to start doing that. And I get it. I'm not saying you can't do that. Don't do that. I'm just, you want to be cognizant of different scenarios, different game throws. So we'll see how it unfolds. I'm pretty excited for this one tonight, though. I think this could be a creative player special. We might have some real randos find the end zone.
Oh, yeah.
That's right, my wheelhouse.
It's certainly going to be a funny one. But yeah, I'm with you, and I think it will be I don't know. I'm going to play probably more lineups than I normally do and just try to hammer a bunch of different randos because that's where it's going to happen. So,
yeah, I mean, we had a couple of things in chat. Kickers tonight, what we were saying with that is just I think this is a better environment for them in general because they just might allocate from a higher percentage of the total offense. This total is not that it's super low, but it's in the 40s. I don't think this game shoots out in a weird way anyway. So there just may not be totally, in terms of all the fantasy points out there, not as many. And when there's a giant spread of them, it's just tough for kickers to keep up. So I have more interest in them tonight, even though, as I did just allude to, I think maybe that narrative that double kickers is a thing may get pushed, which it's not. It's just one of the many strategies you can use for showdown.
Indeed. Speaking of kickers, Did you see the end of the Falcons Buccaneers game yesterday?
I did. I was keeping my eye on that because I, like most of you in chat and everyone else in the world, had some Julio, who did not score again and was okay. Julio kind of false alarm, did nothing in the sense of not good or bad. He didn't make you, didn't break you. Yeah, that was interesting. So just to, if people didn't see it, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think so. The Bucs were down 2 and out of timeouts late in the game, and the Falcons had crossed midfield and basically were faced with a 4th and 2 where they could kick a long field goal, and if they make it, they go up 5. If they miss, turnover, or they could go for it, and if they made it, it's game over because the Bucs were out of timeout. Decided to kick, which I'm more go for the kill. Long field goals are a recipe for disaster, and when we saw the Bucs almost come back and win that game.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, I was kind of just breaking down, looking at the numbers a little bit, and it was a 57-yard field goal, which is very long. Granted, it's in a dome, and Matt Bryant is a very good kicker. So,
he's great, yeah.
So, I mean, I was looking at this, and last year, 50-plus yard field goals. The NFL kickers were 100 and where did it go? 106 for 153 or something. It was like 69%. 57 yards is a lot different than 50 yards. So, but it's Matt Bryant and it's in a dome. So let's just say that stays even, right? So it's a 69% chance that they get the field goal, which is fine, but it's 4th and 2. Yeah. You've got a 62, 63% chance of converting that. And if you do that, it is 100% that you have won the game. If you make the field goal, it's still only like 70% that you win the game, right? Jameis has been tearing you up all day, and he just has to run. He's got 2 minutes with no timeouts, but 2 minutes is plenty of time to march down the field and get a touchdown.
And if, as just pointed out in our chat, if Deshaun Jackson caught that lateral, they probably would have lost on a ridiculous string of circumstances. It wasn't that far-fetched that the Bucs scored there.
No, it really wasn't.
And now...
And what's the difference? You're still if you miss the field goal or miss going for it, like your probability of winning is still the same. It's probably a coin flip or something like that. But just the fact that you have like a 100% chance of winning something that you're going to succeed at 62% of the time, or a 70% chance of winning on something that you're going to succeed at 69% of the time, like the simple math there says go for it. It's like not particularly close, but a little bit frustrating.
We see a lot of that. The Rams seem to get it. Like they just go for the kill.
Patriots get it. I mean, that's the most famous one of all time, right? That
and it didn't work, but it was Colts, right?
Yeah, and it was that was like 10 years ago. It's wild. With Kevin Falk was 4th and 2.
Yep.
To win the game, and Peyton Manning had just been going insane, so it was another one of the I don't trust my defense things. But
know your team. There's no shame. We've actually talked about, and then we're gonna recap the slate on a whole. But we have talked about multiple times with the Colts in particular. They run this very generic defense. You know what? They know their team though. If they tried intricate things, it would end horribly. They don't have the personnel for that. And time again, we saw that. We did see the Bucs defensive coordinator got fired today. So pour one out for poor Mike Smith. I would say it was a good run, but it really wasn't good at all. It was just very bad run.
Yeah, he basically got fired by the Falcons again.
Yeah, it's a double whammy.
That Bucs defense is so bad. I don't know, whatever. Right. You said this beforehand, and I'm inclined to agree with you. Even if it's 100% that Matt Bryant makes that field goal, it's you should go for it anyway.
Yes. Oh, yes. I don't even think twice about that. And we're not that I want to circle back, but yeah, defenses tonight could be, certainly viable. Double defense is a thing. If you think it's going to be a real grinded out game,
the 49ers defense is not in play.
No, but I think the Packers is certainly in play.
Absolutely.
And it's not even because I think Beathard, and we know we hammer this point, but it's super important. It's not because I think Beathard's going to be ineffective. It's because along with his couple touchdowns that he could throw could be a handful of fumbles and interceptions. And that's really what you're looking for.
Indeed.
Yes.
And that's the trouble with the 49ers. They just don't do enough stuff. So you're relying on Rodgers screwing up a ton. Like it's not going to make them in play if it's if the Packers win 17-10, that doesn't mean that the 49ers are going to score points with the defense.
I'd go as far as saying, honestly, if you played the Niners defense in Showdown, you'd be banking on like a blocked punt for a touchdown, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Because Rodgers rarely has those type of games. He's so efficient.
Yeah.
And even if they hold them down, not going to be enough points.
And Bulaga and Bakhtiari are reliable enough that you don't see the guys get completely around them and then just blindside Rodgers, which is the other way that you could potentially force a turnover there if he just doesn't see the guy.
Yeah, it's asking a lot. That's all. And you want to be cognizant of it. Obviously, if you're playing not prime time, but say like a Monday, Thursday, there it's a little different. Still not something I'm super into, but with 2 game slate, you can mix and match. That's obviously a different format.
Yeah. What's the Thursday game this week? We talked about this last year.
It's bad. I hate to inform anyone who doesn't know. It is the Broncos and the Cardinals. David Johnson. I swear to God, not that I played him last week because I didn't play him yesterday. If he can't run on the Broncos, you would give up because everyone can run on the Broncos.
Yeah, they just got mauled twice in a row, including by your boys.
Yeah, it was bad.
Football Jets.
It's they've been getting trounced. Gurley and anybody else has torn them apart. Can we do? We just had a question. Can we do a game by game NFL main slate at some point this week? We got so during the week, Thursday, us 3 will be talking. As you guys know, 3 fellas talking football. But Friday, we will definitely be talking a ton of NFL. And then you got me Sundays again. So Friday is your day. Come on back. But between now and then, we're going to sprinkle in all that good stuff that we normally do.
Yeah, we usually talk a little football. Most shows. Not tomorrow. Like tomorrow is the sort of main. That's
golf.
Just the golf show. So we will be previewing the tournament this week as we continue on in the ageless swing.
Oh, boy. Yeah, if you haven't played any golf and you're looking for a change of pace, always welcome to stop on by. But plenty of football to go around. Anyway, yeah, and that's another good point. We beat around this. It's just worth noting. Rodgers at Lambeau in particular is just dangerously insane.
Like, yeah, and the Niners just don't have anybody that can pressure the quarterback. So they're not going to get a ton of turnovers, and that's what makes a defense valuable.
Like it.
Bobby Gould.
Speaking of how valuable defense is, the guy who started the Twitter, whatever that was, the firestorm about defense not mattering, must have had a golden week for him because Brock Osweiler won the Millie and he torched the Bears along with the Cowboys.
Beat the shit out of Jacksonville.
Like it's a bizarre world out there.
Matter.
Apparently not, right? I mean, it was a crazy. There were some real head scratchers yesterday. We saw. I like the Cowboys in that game. I did not think it would go like that. They dismantled the Jags, who are such an interesting team. Like, do not know what to make of them. They look so competent sometimes, and then they go full Bortles. Which, anyway, how did we didn't really talk about your Sunday.
Yeah. So we do have it. I mean, not confirmed, but the Adam Schefter tweet is out there that Cobb and Allison are most likely expected to sit. That's pretty much a lock. So certainly that helps the other Green Bay wide receivers. MVS definitely in play. Adams is going to see a stupid amount of volume, assuming that the Niners can make it a ball game, which we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely.
My Sunday was pretty annoying, honestly.
It was an annoying slate.
Yeah, it was an annoying slate. I had some lineups that I thought were really good. I have one lineup specifically that I was very, very happy with.
That's more important, even though it's tilting.
Yeah. This is something we mention often, that we try to be more about the process and less about the results, which is definitely easy to say given this hilarious NFL year so far. But the idea of how these lineups are put together is the most important thing there. So I had one in the lineup I like the most. I had this in the 153 max, and I kind of entered it in the other tournaments too. Was looking really good for a while. I mean, its upside was capped fairly quickly, but I had James Conner and Melvin Gordon, who I just thought were in good spots, and they were only clocking in around 13 to 16% ownership, kind of depending on tournament. Thought those were really nice plays. Was surprised at how low owned they were. They both ended up doing really well. David Njoku did pick up a little bit of steam. He was a little higher owned in some of the higher dollar tournaments I saw, but was really happy to go with him. He had 11 targets last week, picked up another 12 this week. Did get in the end zone, seven receptions, 55 yards. Texans defense was only 5% owned, which I found that to be crazy. I get it. I know why the Bears became the overwhelming chalk at the last minute, because Law, Brock Osweiler. That absolutely makes sense to me. I get why people went there, but it ended up becoming like, okay, now the Bears are 30% owned, and like the Texans and the Vikings, who are the other like primo defenses to play, took a big hit.
And not even trying to hindsight it, but Trubisky, Tannehill to Osweiler, it's almost like they truncate their offense to minimize mistakes with him because they know what they're getting. So it doesn't really help your defense per se. Now, of course, it's still Brock. He still could make some mistakes, but it's not like Tannehill was above that. So the ownership wave that goes there certainly dampened that, and it opened up the Texans, which was still a Josh Allen smash spot.
Yeah, it's Josh. I mean, it's Josh Allen. And then not only that, like it was a nice game for Josh Allen. And then he goes out and they bring in Mr. Fantasy Defense, Nathan Peterman, who immediately throws a pick six.
Like if we knew he was going to be in there, forget it.
Yeah. And, the Bears are a really good defense. I get it. And the Texans are not necessarily a good defense. But you know what's more important? The quarterback you're playing against. And Osweiler is not – it was a great play, but at 6 times, with the Texans at a 6 of the ownership, I was very happy with that play. Stacked up the game in London. So that was a tough one because Amari Cooper got concussed immediately. And then I had Russell Wilson with Baldwin and Lockett, who kind of got it done. But what Russ did was kind of he sort of Aaron Rodgers himself. He was just so efficient, and Derek Carr was so, incompetent that it just became a blowout pretty quickly. And Russ only threw, 22 passes or something like that. So,
yeah. Do you hear an echo? I got an echo. But anyway, it's when you see something like that, it is tough because efficiency is sometimes a deterrent. And we did just in chat, someone asked about Rodgers, like if they get way up tonight. Yeah, I do think it affects play calling. They're not going to have him. He's certainly not going to be as mobile. Will he run if he has to? Of course. But I would assume they try to salt the game away, maybe lean on those running backs. For me yesterday, it was interesting. I did not have a good week. That part was not interesting. But the way it developed, in particular in my high stakes team, they threw in, some expensive tournaments. I got what I wanted from ownership. And even when I look at I didn't have many like super landmines. I had a lot, like I had Mixon in there, Julio, the Vikings defense, Njoku, guys who they kind of did their job. But where I went against the grain,
that was like the Russ Wilson, Doug Baldwin, Tyler Lockett sack. It's like, oh, this looks pretty good until, and that's what happens. That's what's been happening this year in DFS. Mm-hmm. Is it's like the pretty good hit value games are getting you lapped. Like this lineup that I was talking about was like top 50 in the power sweep, even with Amari Cooper, and I had the John Brown hammer, and it didn't end up cashing because just stuff went John Brown.
He got like 9 triple teamed and not a lot of targets. That was disappointing. For me, and I did this, I took the stand. I wanted to be sneaky, and I got it. And this is where it gets frustrating. I really thought that the Chargers would certainly move the ball and could put up some points in that game. And I went against the grain. I went Rivers to Keenan Allen. And early in the game, they really were good. Then they had to take the foot off the gas, and they really didn't have to do anything. Melvin Gordon, not that he vultured, but there were a couple of times, they moved it right down and boom, right to him. And he's incredible in the red zone, racked up those points. Unfortunately, Keenan Allen did not find the end zone, returned I think got 15 points. Same with Rivers. And that's just not going to get it done. I was more hoping that A, they scored early to get theirs, or B, that the Browns could keep up and force Rivers to throw the ball. So, it just like any slate, certainly had a couple plays that were not great. I tried to get sneaky and punt with Maurice Harris in some spots with the Redskins. That did not work. And then, there were some things that did work out. Njoku was good. I was really high on him. The defenses, like you said, Texan D was really good. Chester Rogers salvaged with a late touchdown against my Jets.
That pissed me off because you got me on some Chester Rogers. It was a good play, but it was all those lineups were trash, and it's and he was way more popular than I was expecting. And so at that point, it was actively bad for me that he got the garbage touchdown. But it happens.
Yeah, it's that happens. I mean, sometimes you're rooting against your own players when you see which lineups you need.
Sometimes.
Yeah, good point. We're still NFL's moving along. Cash was better, certainly than my tournaments, which is nice, even though it's a disappointing because I had a really good Saturday. My college football back in action. I'm so glad that's back. I had a really good team there. I gave most of that back yesterday, which is frustrating, but cash does help to take that sting out. Even, we're not going to delve into bankroll things right now. And I don't think there's a set, 80, 20, 90, 10. I don't think any of that. But if you're looking to smooth it out a little, play a couple smaller things. Don't, as fun as it is to go for the milli and stuff, that's not a way to grind it up.
Yeah, exactly. Chad brings up an interesting point that I think is worth expounding on. He said, for what it's worth, the analysis at Cole_Kev has done on Showdown slates shows that even in blowouts, optimal lineups have a QB in the MVP or captain slot 18% of the time. I think it's true. I think that the quarterbacks are almost always under-owned at 50, 60%. I think you should be trying to get both of them in and play roulette with the weapons most of the time. Maybe not every single lineup. You want to leave yourself some outs, but those are the best raw points plays. The thing I would push back on with that specifically in terms of tonight about, because the sort of next part of that was saying Rodgers as the captain makes sense. The trouble is if it's a blowout, a lot of times the winning team in a blowout has a harder time. And what we were saying, especially someone like Aaron Rodgers, who is just unbelievably efficient and could very easily have a 3-touchdown, 215-yard game that is enough to just kill them. I think that the person getting blown out is often the more interesting quarterback because they just have to keep launching. And that is a really nice spot. We saw what happened with stupid Blortles last week in Kansas City, right? They got destroyed and he was horrible, but scored, 87 DraftKings points or something like that.
Absolutely. It's I just said this, but sometimes efficiency can be a deterrent because if Aaron Rodgers goes out, gets a couple early, they get a couple on the ground, they're going to take their foot off the gas. I saw it firsthand yesterday. Phillip Rivers, for me, he killed me, and it was not his fault. He was great.
Yeah.
But they had no incentive to really go there. It would have been not that Baker was good, but you would have much rather had him playing wild catch-up than watching the Chargers have Eckler run out the clock.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Phil Rivers has been phenomenal this year. That guy is perennially the most underrated quarterback.
They're quietly 4-2 with losses to the Rams and the Chiefs. They're just chilling.
No shame in that.
Oh.
I feel somewhat happier about my take at the beginning of the year. Well, granted, they're not the second best team anymore. I did not have this much respect for the Chiefs heading into the season, but I like the Chargers as the second best team in the AFC, and I think they're comfortably the third now. I think the hot take at the time was that I liked them better than the Steelers.
I mean, the hot take early was that a lot of people were picking the Chargers as the team in the AFC before the year, me included. We'll see. They always, the Chargers, they always somehow find a way to mess it up, usually with the kicker.
Yeah. Again, hopefully getting Bosa back in a couple of weeks, like that defense will become a lot scarier. I don't know. They're a good team.
Their defense has quietly looked a little better. And again, things get skewed when you play the Chiefs and the Rams. That's no picnic.
QB dog and blowout in 41% of optimal lineups. Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Sweet.
I will say, this is the age-old question with the From A to B show. Donald in chat, what's up, man? Yeah, is this a NFL or a golf show? It's a good question. And if we had another hour, we could explain it all. But right, honestly, it's a little of everything. It's a little of both. But what we can tell you, on Tuesdays, we bring in our third member of the team, Tim Frank, and we do our golf show that if you were around from FanVice, we just break down the tournament. And then Wednesday night, we do our lock show, which is talking about our exposures and whatnot. But on Mondays, on Thursdays, on Friday, we're going to be talking a lot of NFL, Showdown, lineup construction, talking about who we like for the upcoming Saturday slate, college football, and a lot of that. So we try to get a little of both here and there, but that's going to be the schedule. Always feel free to jump in chat with some questions on the crossover, but that is the game plan.
It is. And Monday, week in review, we do leave a little bit of room for golf as well. Did you catch any of it really? Was the time just too weird for you?
I mean, me, I like to I was not up late watching the golf from Malaysia. Good for Leishman. I had a good week in golf, actually. It went smooth sailing. I did not play a lot, and as I've said, of course, this is one of those, and you want to stick to your things. If I would have played a lot, I really could have done some damage because my core was great. But you know what? That wouldn't have been the optimal move in a non-cut, non-shot tracker tournament. So I stuck to my process and probably left some on the table this time. That's all right.
Yeah, I smoked in golf. It was pretty nice. I got off of in the 555. I just felt like JT was going to be pushing or north of 50% owned, which oddly he was more highly owned in the lower stakes than he was at the super high stakes. I don't feel like that, but I guess with something that extreme, it becomes there's a chance that he gets to that. So, when the ownership is that extreme, I think people are more likely to start at higher stakes to be like, oh, I got to pivot off of it. I think if JT was, if this was a full field event or there were some more real players and JT was the most popular guy and he was projecting it, 27, 28%, that's when I think you see 33, 35 at higher stakes and you get down a little bit lower at lower stakes. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But this high, like people do think about game theory to some extent, and 50% that's tough. So I ended up I had a nice sweat. I was like sixth in the 555 going into the last day. Again, no teams were dead yet because it's a no cut. So by no means was I locking anything in or spending any money yet. But it was Leishman and Woodland and Louis, which were great. Peters was kind of meh. Mm-hmm. And then Appy Barnrat was quietly awful, just from a scoring perspective. And then JJ Spawn was just absolute trash. Had that same team in the club twirl with Hadley instead of JJ Spawn, and that was like monstrous and probably would have won some stuff. But it was very good in the club twirl. I forget where it would have come in the 555, but not a big worth
golf right now.
That was just one I actually did consider, so it's bummed me out. And there was the same one that I actually considered last year in the JJ Spawn meltdown tournament, where that not playing Hadley cost me.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I hate Chesson Hadley.
It's he's a tricky fella. Yeah, the swing season is tough. We're gonna cover it, of course, but I I'd be lying if I said these tournaments, especially over in Asia, they're just weird times and weird shot trackers and whatnot. All right. Well, before we get out of here, we got a couple things. Do we want to just really quick go over who's in and who's out for what we know in Showdown? We did have that question, and then we did have me. Who do I guess Aaron Rodgers throws 2 touchdowns to, Adams or Scantling? Well, if I had to get one, I would certainly prefer Adams. I mean, the guy is just a monster, but he's more expensive, of course. So, but right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, we got what's up?
Oh, just we have a hard line to toe, you know.
I know it's tricky. I will say this: if you haven't tried golf, drop in on a Tuesday just and give us a chance. It's a lot of fun. Maybe not even now. Come the new year when the season really gets going. DFS golf is awesome. It's a lot of fun.
This is actually the audience to say this to, because I feel like we say this sometimes in front of our golf audience and people get like really offended by it because golf is a sport that a lot of people are really hardcore about. Here's the secret. Neither of us are really golf fans either.
Yeah, I do enjoy watching it, but no.
Because of DFS, but like we got into it because it was a game that was not as solved as the other ones, and we got in and started just winning a lot of money at golf. So, and then it wasn't into the industry because there's a million NFL and NBA touts out there, and there weren't as many for golf. So that was how we got our start. That's how we got to know each other. But we play every sport. We play higher, just as high volume at every other sport. So
except baseball.
Yeah, except baseball.
Get that out of here. But yeah,
I get into the pucks a little bit this year. It's been
Mr. Pucks. Yeah, I mean Gup is awesome for golf. A lot of good golf guys out there. Golf community is very cool.
Yeah, a lot of cool people.
So yeah, right now though, going just back because I know people love these showdowns and we want to give people what they want. I think where we're at is Allison and Cobb are expected to sit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Niners side, I feel like gut feel is Breida and Garcon are going to play, but I have not seen that confirmed.
Yes. I've heard, Breida and Garcon are both like leaning more probable. Yeah.
Okay. So there we go. I guess that means MVS is solidified and Equanimous St. Brown is something. But Devontae Adams certainly, like I said last week, was just an absolute beast.
Clear number one there.
Clear number one.
MVS is nice, I get it. I'll take some stabs on those guys, but I'm going to be playing a ton of Devontae Adams. He will be insanely popular. I wouldn't be surprised to see he should get up to like 70% owned just because you can afford him. Like if you're playing anybody cheap, you can afford all of these expensive dudes. So, yeah, but I guess you could take some stabs on Equanimous St. Brown, who I maintain sounds like a UFC fighter, and then Jamon Moore. He got into the game a little bit last week, but I think St. Brown was ahead of him. Just like absolute dart throws. Yeah, the tight ends are super cheap. Like Lance Kendricks occasionally will get red zone looks. That's the troll. It's just those troll plays happen. And Rodgers is one of those guys, right? How many times have we seen like who was the fullback they had? Yeah, Kuhn.
Yeah. No, it's very true. We Patriots are kind of like that too. A lot of teams they use very specific guys in certain situations. So take some stabs, have some fun.
Mike Vrabel had like 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, I know, right? It's insane. Anyway, well,
it is. Yeah, but Showdown is a good time.
It's fun. Have some fun with it tonight. Always a good way to cap off another week of the NFL.
Yes, it is. Is Adams, Rodgers, Beathard a possible build?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you can fit, with the cheapies, you can do some really aggressive stars and scrubs tonight.
Yeah, you're going to be looking at 3 punts if you put one of those guys in the captain spot, but you can do it. I don't know. Should be a fun slate, as it always is, because Showdown is just I don't know. It's pretty fun. It's amazing like how much I have like become fine with this, because I think the like rational part of my brain when it came out was just like they're just taking decisions away from us, and it makes it harder. But when you get constantly murked by like the 1% owned Brock Osweiler just blowing up a slate, sometimes it's fun to be like to know that you can cover more bases.
As long as we say this every time, it's great, it's fun. it's really high variance, really high. So keep that in mind.
And you're going to get destroyed most of the time in Showdown, and that's okay. Like if you walk out of a Showdown slate down 50%, you should be stoked.
Yeah, it's very, again, extremely volatile.
Because it's not about the Showdown more than any other slate, and we've seen this, right? Because we all know people, like two of our friends have like just, I mean, back-to-back weeks, Garubi and Osimo just like pulled in high
big scores.
Yeah, just insane scores. But know that most of the time in a Showdown, something like that is that high variance, you're probably going to lose a little bit and hope to just, roll out of there. And then like maybe once this season you pull off one of those where you chop for a reasonable score up top. At least pull in a couple grand to take that off. But it's much more, it's not going to be that steady curve that maybe cash is. So keep that in mind. Anything else from you? Final thoughts?
No. Another good week. Thanks for tuning in, people. Have some fun. We'll be back tomorrow, like I said, with third member of the team, Tim Frank. And yeah,
keep talking about how Leishman, non-chalk Leishman was finally good for the first time ever.
Put it down. And yeah, obviously, if you guys have questions, always hit us up on Twitter, hit us up in Slack. If you want to know what we're planning for the rest of the week or just anything, definitely keep us posted.
Yeah, and if you're watching on YouTube, a like would be pretty awesome.
Much appreciated.
Help us out. All right, well, thanks everyone for listening, and we will talk to you tomorrow.